The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I got a great and special episode for us today. First and foremost, everybody, please go and peep all of the sponsors that you'd heard at the beginning of the episode. That is Tactical Brotherhood, Reaper Apparel, and my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Before I could get this recorded, though, we did just land a new sponsor for the show. That is Dubby Energy, D-U-B-B-Y, Dubby Energy. It is energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike, by streamers and podcasters alike. Go and check them out. My sample should be coming here any day now. Like I said, just landed them. I'm so excited to try it and get to work on that. All those links will be in the notes of this episode. For W Energy, if you use the promo code Mike Bono, you will get 10% off of your purchase. That being said, I do have a special episode, and with a special episode comes a very special co-host, and it is everybody's favorite manager of the podcast, Johnny Fiddy Falconi. What's going on, Fiddy?
Hey, Bono, here we go with another episode, man. I'm trying to be on the come up like you.
Fiddy, we might just have to make it a permanent thing. You've been on so many times as a co-host. I think we just need to just implement it. You're the co-host now. I mean, that's...
There's a lot better people than me out there.
All right. But this is our NCAA Final Four preview show. We have an extensive panel of guests today that Fiddy and I are both going to be talking to. We kind of had to break it up into two groups. We had so many people and that wanted to come on. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my group, the Bono group. And so, guys, whenever you are called, again, tell everyone where you're from, your name, what you do, and who your favorite college basketball team is. I'll start. As always, everybody knows I am Mike Bono. I am a comedian and podcaster, and I do have a day job, and I sell sheds. I am a salesman. Yeah, I sell sheds for the Amish, too, as well. My favorite basketball team is UNC. So, without further ado, first up on Bono's list, Nick. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Nick Canterino. I'm a teacher and basketball coach at Campbell Memorial High School. I'm from Girard, Ohio. My favorite team is Duke.
Oh, man, they put you in my group. Just kidding. My wife's a Duke fan, too, so it's fun this time of the year when with college basketball. Paolo, let's go to you next.
Uh, I'm still getting my camera situated, but I'm Paolo DePasquale. I'm a teacher in the Camel District with Nick, and I'm also his assistant basketball coach. My favorite college basketball team, I'm a Kentucky guy. I stick with the Italians, so I'm riding with Calipari.
Attaboy. Stick with the Italians. I like it. Duncan, let's go to you.
Duncan Williams. I'm originally from West Virginia. I coach men's basketball at Notre Dame up in Cleveland, Ohio. My favorite college basketball is Wake Forest, Tim Duncan, late 90s. I'm picking years now.
All right. And rounding out my group, we're bringing them back, Ryan Barth.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan Barth. I'm from Anunk, Illinois, and my job is I'm a TA at a middle school, and then I coach high school basketball during the winter, and then football during the fall. So that's what I do. And my favorite college basketball team is the Illinois Fighting Illini. Huge Coach Underwood fan.
All right. I had a feeling that was coming, though.
Yeah.
Knowing you Barth as well as I do.
Absolutely. Huge Illini fans.
That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Fiddy to introduce his group. Take it away.
Well, everybody, I'm John Fiddy Falconi. As most people know, I'm originally from Western PA. I now reside on the east side of Cleveland. And my favorite basketball team is actually the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Same thing in football, same thing in basketball. Go Bows. So my group is a little bit different. Mike has the coaches. I actually have the media and administrators. So we're going to start with Tony. Go ahead.
My name's Tony Bogan. I'm originally from Shaker Heights, Ohio. I work in medical sales, and I am also a podcaster on the side. Quick plug, go check out Tapped In with Tony. It's a podcast I have. It's a few episodes deep. And my favorite basketball team, since I have to say I have two. Youngstown State, because of their run, and I got to go with Kent State University.
Okay. Brian, let's go to you next.
Yeah, Brian Sansom, originally from Grove City, PA. I'm a retired basketball coach, currently the director of athletics at Bethany College. My favorite team is North Carolina. Go Tar Heels.
Drew Barth, let's go to you next.
Yeah, how's my UNC fans? How you guys doing? I'm originally from Anunk, Illinois. I'm an associate director of development at Purdue University, so I reside in Lafayette, Indiana now. And for my Purdue people, I'm a Purdue fan, but growing up, big Illinois fan, and still am, but throw Purdue in there as well.
And then last but not least, everybody's favorite guy in the world, the GOAT, Mike. Go ahead and take it away.
Hello, Mike Worrell. I grew up in Ohio, but I'm doing this from Jacksonville, Illinois. I currently have no occupation, and I don't really have favorite college teams, but I have two former players that are head Division I coaches, Lamont Paris at South Carolina and Ryan Peden at Illinois State. So I kind of follow those two teams.
And for everybody, Mike's way too humble. I will say this for him. Mike is the only coach in NCAA history to coach a Division III team, beat a Division I team, and have the slam dunk champion in 2014. But correct me if I'm wrong on that date, Mike. 2011. So, and Mike is just a knowledge of basketball. So that is my panel. Mike has his panel. So, Mike, let's take it away.
All right. I knew you were going to get that shameless plug in there for the GOAT. I knew it. He deserves it. He won't say it himself. You're absolutely right. But all right. So, Nick, we're going to start with you with the first question here. What are your thoughts about the Final Four being played at NRG Stadium in Houston?
Pretty cool, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it don't really matter to me where it's played, you know. I'm just excited for the matchups.
Okay. Paulo, see, we got the video working. What about you? Same question.
Never been there, but sort of feel the same. It's going to look the same for me when I'm watching it on TV, you know. I wish I could be there. I did go to one Final Four. I was in New Orleans when Kentucky played, by the way, and they won. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to be good atmosphere.
All right, Duncan, same to you. What do you think about NRG Stadium?
I like that it's down there. I like the matchups are probably the coolest thing. I think a lot of people will agree with that one probably. Who's playing and who's playing who and everything down there. I think that's extremely unique and new. The followings are probably building. So I'm really excited to see some teams that probably aren't predominantly in this thing kind of play each other.
Absolutely. And Ryan, let's have you round out this question.
Yeah, I'm with all of them. They could play it in the backyard here, and I think everybody would still go watch. So they're playing for a ring and a national championship. So I think the atmosphere is going to be great there, and it could be anywhere in the atmosphere would be great. So whether it be in Houston or out back in the yard, I think it's going to be some great matchups, and can't wait to watch them.
All right, hey Fiddy, go ahead and take it away with your question.
So I have the same question, but with me asking the administrators and the college guys and the media, what do you think about this being played at a football stadium? And for everybody that doesn't know, I believe the last basketball arena to hold a Final Four is actually 1992. Other than that, they've went into indoor domes or other areas from Tropicana Field to the New Orleans Superdome to NRG Stadium. So let's start with you, Tony, from the media side. What do you think about this being played at NRG Stadium in Houston?
I like it, honestly. I think eventually it's going to be played at Allegiant Stadium in the future and probably played at LA Stadium at SoFi. So I like the move, honestly. You get more people, more butts and seats, more revenue, especially if you've got really good matchups. So it's a win-win.
Coach Sansom, what about you? What do you think of this?
He kind of touched on it there a little bit. It's all about money at that level. So the more people they can pack into a bigger arena, bigger football stadium, that's what that's going to drive revenue at that level for Division I. So, but definitely, I think it's a cool atmosphere. Something with regards to. I've never been to a Final Four in a football stadium, but obviously, I think it'll create a pretty cool vibe down there.
Drew, what about you? What do you think of it?
Yeah, when you can combine football with basketball, you can't beat that. How often does that get to happen? So seeing that, it's pretty cool. I mean, and with 4 teams that aren't usually in it, I mean, that's pretty unique too. So you'd see different fan bases and all that, and to experience at a football stadium is quite unique. I think it's pretty sweet.
And then, Mike, what about you? What do you think of this?
Well, believe it or not, I was at the last arena that was held in a non-dome, 1996 in the Meadowlands.
1996.
And then the NCAA came up with a rule that it doesn't say it has to be in a dome, but it had a certain amount of people, 32,000. So the place had to hold that, so you might as well say it has to be a dome, right? So that's when that started. And then all of us normal people, coaches that go to the games, it's not a really great place to watch a game from, a dome, basketball. All the bigwigs from the Coaches Association, D1, AD, CBS, all the bigwigs get the nice seats down on the floor. So I've been up really high, and the atmosphere is great just being in there, but it is hard to watch a basketball game there.
Well, Mike Worrell coming through probably with the best answer. Bottle, let's go back to you.
All right. So, Nick, let's keep it up with you again here. Start with you. As coaches, how do you keep your team in focus in this type of atmosphere when you're playing on this stage?
I mean, I think at this level, I don't think you need to keep their focus on. I mean, you got to think personally, everyone's there to compete for the national championship. The reason you go to big-time schools like that or for that chance. So, I mean, if you get to the Final Four and you got to be worried about your team's focus and stuff like that, then, you probably got a lot on your plate there. But, I mean, I would just kind of take it one game at a time. You can't get to the championship until you win the first one is pretty much what I would say. You always have the goal of winning the national championship. But, again, you got to get there first. So just focus on the first game before the second game.
Okay, I got you. Paulo, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with Nick. I mean, the main thing would have to be probably trying to keep everything as normal as you usually do. Obviously, we don't do it at that level, but like I know for us, that's always what we do. Our point guard last year, he's playing at Kent State Tuscarawas right now, and it's just a good example. If like his shorts weren't on the right way, it would ruin his whole day. So we just always try to make sure every game is just the same. And I'm sure they're doing the same thing.
All right. Duncan, let's go to you.
I think as a player, they probably don't see much of a difference of what they're doing as far as traveling and hotels and things of that nature. But behind the scenes, there's always a million things going on, from the seventh assistant, that's the director of basketball operations at Adobo, that's taking care of some type of travel, that's talking to the head assistant or head coach about, how are we going to handle this situation when we go to practice, when we leave this building to go to that building, when it's nonstop. Those things happen 24/7 within that team. Those kids just don't know that. So keeping their focus on what that coach wants to keep their focus on is almost a little easier as a player than it is as a professional on the other side, of the court. The other thing that is kind of stood out in today's game is the four teams that have made it to the finals. Not that they're exactly alike, but they seem to have either really experienced and or tougher coaches. I mean, all of them, whether they came from mid-major or not, you're not seeing the overhype of some of these teams. These teams kind of made their way through it. So I think their personalities of the team kind of got them to that. So keeping their focus, they've kind of done that themselves. I just know from a team standpoint with traveling, going to a Final Four, there's a million things they're trying to do or not do, but I don't think those players actually see a lot of that stuff.
Okay. I like that answer a lot. Ryan, try to top that one.
Yeah, I'm not going to try and top that. That was some pretty good stuff. But just with trying to keep your team focused, I don't think it's going to change much from what they're going to do day to day. I think they're just going to go into the game with a lot of adrenaline, obviously, and trying to contain that and put all that energy into a possession at a time, I think is going to be a big part of what's going to happen this weekend. So I think other than what Duncan said, I mean, that was some pretty good stuff. I can't try and top any more of that. So just taking it a possession at a time and putting all their energy towards that, I think is going to be what they're going to do. So that's all I got for you, Bono. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I think Duncan hit every nail on the head on that answer. So
absolutely. That was tough. That was a good one.
All right, Fiddy, take it away.
So, and I want to, this is a little bit going to be different of a question. So, Tony, we're going to start with you, though. But between media coverage, TV contracts, fundraising, and alumni donations, merchandise sales, college enrollment, and popularity, which team has the most to gain by not just being in the Final Four, but winning the national championship?
I would have to say, honestly, any underdog probably would say either Florida Atlantic or San Diego State. These are two teams, and I would say to a lesser extent Miami, but they already have national championships in football and baseball. So I would have to say one of those underdog teams like Florida Atlantic or San Diego State, because one of those two teams will be in the national championship for the first time in school history. And they're already in like higher temperature locales, so that's going to help recruitment. That's going to help drive sales. That's going to drive recruits to their school. That's going to get their conferences a higher reputation. The Mountain West is already pretty solid, but once you add the Conference USA, plus you've got a Conference USA team that won the CBI and the Charlotte 49ers, and you're going to have a Conference USA team win the NIT tomorrow night, whether it be North Texas or University of Alabama, Birmingham. So there's a lot to gain, especially from rights and especially from your fan base. And let's just hope it's not like a one-year wonder, because a lot of these underdog teams just come and go. Hopefully it's something that's sustainable. And especially you've got FAU and Miami, nearly the same city, about 20, 30 minutes from each other. Imagine if they met for the national championship.
That would be great. Brian, let's go to you next. Same question.
Yeah, I mean, I think the schools like San Diego State, obviously, and FAU, I think, gain a lot from, you just see the uptick in people that will want to apply to go to those schools, who have interest, who will click on their website, who will be driven to some of their merchandise. You know what I mean? Because it'll be cool to maybe it's something with their mascot. Somebody wants a shirt like that. I've been fortunate to coach on the D3 level women's and been to the Final Four with the women's, as assistant coach at the women's level. And I just know the success that we had at Montclair State. We gave our college $35 million of free advertising through our stretch of going to the Final Four. So that was stuff that we were on the news, we were on TV, we were on everything, and that was free advertising for the school. So a smaller school like FAU and San Diego State, in a sense, right, I think benefits the most from the publicity that they're going to get through these first couple, obviously already that they've gotten, but now especially because you're now not competing with a Duke or a Kentucky. It's FAU and San Diego State. One of those teams is playing for a national title, and that's going to be the storyline in the long run, no matter who they play, I believe. So, I see it from different contexts, but similar to what Tony was saying there, I think it's those schools who I think benefit the most from it, because a UConn, a Miami has been there on the national level. Maybe not exactly Miami just in basketball, but let's face it, the U, football, baseball, right? So they've been at that national level, where FAU, San Diego State, we haven't heard that a ton. So I think they benefit the most out of that.
And Drew, I want to hear from you next on this, especially because you're in the advancement office with alumni relations and stuff. So, same question to you. What do you think, Drew?
Well, FDU beating Purdue doesn't necessarily help me all that much, but so thanks for throwing that in there, Fiddy. But I mean, we can talk about basketball and all that, but when you're trying to talk to donors and stuff, that's not the first question you want to bring up. Hey, did you watch the game a couple Fridays ago? So that's a little difficult. It's still sour in their mouth because it's still so recent. We just had a meeting the other day, and our CEO's like, I wish I was in New York City right now, so I'm a little salty being at this meeting presenting to you guys. So it's a different atmosphere with that. And those two just nailed everything along that question. I mean, FAU is going to get a lot of uptick out of this. I mean, go look at Butler when they made it to the national championship, all the percentages that went up with them and everything. And VCU back in 2011, they have so much to gain from it, where UConn and Miami obviously are big names already, so they don't need to gain as much. They will, but they don't need to. So, yeah.
And then, Mike, let's finish up with you with the same question.
I agree with what everybody said, so I'm not going to rehash and say the same things. Everybody is point on, in my opinion. But my oldest daughter, when Butler was in the Final Four in Indianapolis, we were there, and she visited Butler that weekend, and it was incredible. Like, I know Brian put a monetary figure out there, but what Butler got in the atmosphere when students were visiting campus the weekend they were in the Final Four was unbelievable. And what Tony said, I'm an underdog guy. I'm a small conference guy. The Big Five conferences are in panic mode right now because all these little guys from these small conferences who I follow these small conferences. Conference USA is legit. Like Florida Atlantic is 35-3. Like, this is no shock to me that they're where they're at. And I think I heard last night they're 17-1 or 18-1 in the postseason at all NIT, NCAA, everything. Conference USA.
Interesting.
So I'm a David versus Goliath thing, but to me, Florida Atlantic's not a Cinderella. Like, they're really good. But
good point on that, Mike. All right, and then Mike Barno, back to you now.
All right, so Nick, let's go with you with question number 3. Which of these teams has the best coaching staff, and why do you think that?
Ooh. I got to go with Miami, with Larinaga. Big fan of his. He had the run with George Washington. But, I mean, you can't name something that he's going to see that he hasn't seen before. That's where my mind is he's seen everything, and I'd rather have that guy on my side than anyone else.
All right. Paolo, what about you?
I honestly think Hurley. I just think that when you get to that level and, you're playing in a Final Four, it's not so much, X's and O's. I mean, obviously there is, but it's what's going to be the difference maker. And I think he just does like an excellent job of just getting kids to, they're just like tough as hell, and he is. And you can see that just his presence, it goes with the kids. And I think that's something that only a certain amount of coaches can have. You can't fake it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Duncan, what about you?
I appreciate everybody stealing my answers. That was good. I wanted to say Larinaga because, I'm from that Winchester, Virginia, Martinsburg, West Virginia line. He wasn't too far away, and he was doing well. They had some DMV regional kids. And then I definitely wanted to say Hurley. I mean, you could tell that guy coaches hard. And I don't think their players are worried about any adversity. And, hell, at this point, they probably want some. That's probably where they feel comfortable. But since I can't say any of them and jump on a board, what's happened at FAU is pretty cool. Coach May's kind of got that thing rolling. I see. I want to sound smart in 10 years, but if you get really good at FAU and you're recruiting to Florida and the beach, and you can probably keep kids there, and you can probably do really well. And there was a guy that did that somehow 20 years ago and is still doing it today, and turned a low Division I into one of the best basketball programs in the country over at Gonzaga a long time ago. So, I want to look smart in 10 years. So I'm going to say FAU, fast forward 10 years, and they got it rolling. He's probably going to have another job in a week. So I'm probably wrong, but Gonzaga in 10 years, here we go.
Ryan, finish this out.
Yeah, I would say the best coaching staff. I don't know if you can really say the best because there's some good coaches in the Final Four, and that's why they're there. But Miami's experience with Jim Larinaga at George Mason, I mean, that's rather impressive, and the experience that he has from that run, I'm sure he's going to take a few things that he had in that one. But then you got to love Florida Atlantic's coach's story, going from a manager or a ball boy to a manager with Bobby Knight. I mean, that's some pretty cool stuff right there, and I'm sure he learned quite a bit in that run that he had along the way. And you just got to love his demeanor on the sideline. I mean, he never seems rattled, never seems to think a moment's too big. He believes in his guys, and I think that at FAU, that staff is what they're doing there. At Coach Worrell said 35-3. That's rather impressive. And then a really good basketball conference, like Coach Worrell says, that says a lot. So I think FAU, and I have to go with that.
All right. I kind of split on my group. Fiddy, go ahead.
I do want to throw out, since we brought up Bobby Knight, the last undefeated national championship team in NCAA history was 1976. The General Bobby Knight led the Indiana Hoosiers to the title at 32-0. So I'm a big Bobby Knight fan. Who doesn't love somebody named the General when they're commanding the floor? So, but do want to throw out, it's been 47 years since the last undefeated national champion. Which brings me into actually this question. And we're going to start with you, Tony. Do you think it helps or hurts the popularity of the tournament when you don't have the blue blood teams in the Final Four like UCLA, North Carolina, Duke, Indiana, and Kentucky?
Honestly, it helps. It doesn't help bracket-wise for picking a winner in a tournament if you're filling out a bracket, but as far as popularity goes, this year's tournament's been crazy. I think it honestly helps seeing like your Princetons, your Fairleigh Dickinsons, your Furmans, UMBC in the past, your St. Peter's, Florida Gulf Coast, and so on and so forth. It honestly helps because it appears that the gap is closing between the double-digit seeds like your 13, 14, 15, 16, and the 1, 2, 3, 4. It just basically means like the gap's closing, so every game is tighter now. All it takes is just so you win every TV timeout, take it little by little. Look at Fairleigh Dickinson. I'm pretty sure outside of that group, nobody thought they had a chance against Purdue. Not with the 7-4 behemoth at center. Being the smallest team in the nation, literally and figuratively. But they got the job done.
Drew, I'm going to go to you next since you work for Purdue and you're that school that lost to that. So, Drew, let's go to you next on that.
Personally, the Blue Bloods you named, I love not seeing them in it because, they're probably Yankees fans too and all that. Just hop on every bandwagon they can. So, I enjoy seeing smaller schools, get there. I mean, that's what March Madness is all about. That's why we all watch it and tune in as much as we do, because you love seeing those upsets. You don't like seeing necessarily Purdue losing like that. But, I mean, it's so unique seeing a 16 beat a 1, and then they competed against Florida Atlantic. They were in that game the whole way. They had a chance to win it at the end, and, I like that the gap is closing, but, how long can it sustain? I guess we'll see. But for this year, I love seeing it like this.
And we'll finish up with the two basketball coaches. Mike, let's go to you. Do you think this helps or hurts the NCAA when those teams aren't in it?
I think the casual fan loves seeing this kind of thing. The teams upset the big dogs. I think most of the media like it. Gives them a lot to talk about, good stories. And I go back to the Power 5 conferences. They're hating it. They want all the money. They don't like it when too many of the lower, conference teams win. But yeah, the gap's been closing the last several years, and there's just a lot of, somebody asked me a month ago, like, who I thought could win it. And I said, like 32 of the 68 teams that get in, I think have a chance to win it. I sincerely believe almost half the field, once they got in, had a chance to get to the Final Four.
And then, Brian, let's finish with you on that same question.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of touched on those key points. I would say that being somebody that's a bigger time, usually bigger time. Heck, North Carolina couldn't even play in the Bethany Memorial Church League this year. But but I think this year I've been more intrigued in watching it, probably because of that, right? Because of some of the upsets that have happened, and being now just a casual fan of watching the tournament, it's been more enjoyable watching some of those smaller schools win. But I think Mike says it's best, and I think even some of these smaller D1 schools have even said that there's been some poaching that's already been going on throughout this tournament from the Power Fives. And I think to Mike's point is they're not happy that they're losing, and bigger teams are also, bigger names are losing to these types of schools, because they do want it to be a Final Four where it's Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, those type of teams in there. But I think for a casual fan, I think this has been really fun, just to watch. Also, my brother's a Duke fan, so you guys that are Duke fans, I'm always a fan of who Duke plays no matter what. So I apologize for that, but that's just how that goes in my life.
You apologize for nothing, Brian.
All right, Mike, back to you.
All right. Question number 4 here. We're going to keep it in the same order here, Nick, so we're going to start with you again. Who's the best team in this year's Final Four, and why? I asked a hard-hitting question.
Yeah, tough call here. I'm going to go with UConn. Like Paulo said, I think they're really well coached. They just seem like a team that nothing much affects them. If they get down, they're okay. They don't panic. Got some veterans. Got a couple go-to guys. But I think they kind of take the persona of Hurley. And, obviously they have some studs in that team. I wish they weren't playing Miami. I like both those teams, but I'm going to give the edge to UConn.
All right. Paulo, let's go to you.
I don't know. That's tough. I think UConn has the best players. Like their backcourt solid. But I don't know. The more I watch FAU, I think FAU's really solid. It's just so hard to tell. I think the biggest thing is just the transfer portal, because these kids, they're not committing to FAU or committing to, San Diego State. They're getting these kids from everywhere. So I think that's the biggest thing we keep saying, these smaller schools. They're all good, but they have so much talent on all these teams that typically wouldn't be at these schools 5 years ago,
Yeah, that's solid. Duncan, what about you?
They already picked mine, but if I had to pick a best team, because I think all four teams are highly fresh to this Final Four. You don't see any of these four really on a consistent basis. If you had to pick one that's, consistently this good, you might say UConn, but it's not like they've been here every year either. And because of that inexperience, maybe in a football stadium that's going to have, I don't even know what the number is that this place holds. It's probably going to be 50 or 100,000, who knows? That is going to throw some of your statistics off. It's not like you show up in that gym and all of a sudden shoot better than you shot all year. My assumption is normally you shoot a tad bit worse. And if you're going to shoot worse, then defense is probably going to win. I think UConn has the best defense by far. If I'm going by that scenario, I do like UConn to win it. I think you got to have a center. They got that. You got to have a good guard. You got that. You got to have a good shooting guard. You got that. And mostly, a lot of times, the guys that win it have the older players as well. It's not a one-and-done era that's going to win you a national championship anymore. You look at the average age of all of these teams, and they're well above teams that were in this game 5-6 years ago. So I don't want to jump on the bandwagon, but because I think defense is probably going to win it. There are some years where offense does win it. I think defense, because of the inexperience of some of these teams at this Final Four, is going to win it. I'm going to go with UConn.
All right. Ryan, round us out.
Yeah, they all touched on the same thing that I was going to touch on. I just think San Diego State, the way that they can guard and how physical that they are, I think they've got a really good chance at winning it. But, Miami's got two really good guards in their backcourt with Wong and Ross, and I just think that they can make shots at a high clip. But at the same time, UConn, they're just really solid. They play up-tempo. They play fast. It's just tough to say because they take a lot of energy from their coach, and he coaches hard. They play hard, and it shows. They trust him, and I think it's going to come down to San Diego State, UConn, and I think UConn pulls it out because I just think they're more consistent when it comes down the stretch and their ability to guard too, and I think they pull it out this weekend. So I would go with UConn.
All right. Go ahead, Fiddy. Take it away.
Tony, we're going to go with you first. Which of these four teams has the best shot to return next year in the Final Four? If you can pick just one out of Miami, FAU, UConn, and San Diego State, who is most set up to be the one returning team next year?
It's a toss-up between UConn and San Diego State, to be honest with you. Because I think San Diego State in 2020 had one of their best seasons of all time. If COVID didn't prematurely cancel the season, I think San Diego State would have won it all. Or at least went to the Final Four 3 years earlier. But I would have to say it depends on who all is returning, goes to the draft, who goes where. Smart money says UConn, but I think San Diego State, because it looks like they're building something. Like, I could see them beating a UCLA. I could see them beating a blue blood like a Duke or a Kentucky. So San Diego State.
Okay. Well, what about you, Brian? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a tough question. As somebody mentioned the transfer portal a while ago, these teams could all have different guys next year. Look at all the guys that are already. North Carolina's team, obviously that's most I'm familiar with. They got all kind of guys leaving. A Caleb Love ends up at San Diego State. Man, that changes them real quick to who they are next year, UConn or Miami. I think Miami might have a new coach next year. It just seems if you listen, if you've been paying attention a little bit. He may, Larinaga may be retiring. So that could change. That changes the whole thing. I don't know. San Diego State, their mascot is an Aztec warrior, versus a husky, an owl, and what's a hurricane. Hurricane's pretty intense, I guess. But so I'm going off the mascot solely because, again, the transfer portal can screw all these teams up. So I'm going with the Aztec warrior. San Diego State to be the team that's going to be back there next year.
All right, what about you, Drew Barth?
First, I got to throw a shot at Ryan. We're in the same bracket pool together, and he's in last place. So he picked UConn, San Diego State. I'd just fade him on both those. Just had to throw that one in there real quick. So, like Coach Sansom just mentioned there, you could see a whole new team on each team right now with the portal being so high. I think it's over 1,000 already, and the season hasn't even ended yet. So, if I had to pick one, I'm just going to go with UConn just because of their name. But, I'll probably be wrong. I'll probably be wrong with my football pick I made for the college football playoff, too, for that show. So, I'll go with UConn, but who knows?
All right, Mike Worrell, how about you? Which one of these teams is going to be the one that return next year?
I'm inclined to say none of them. But if I had to say one, I'd say UConn, I guess. But it's like Brian said with the portal, a high percentage of Division I teams will have whole new teams or whole new nucleuses. Team that's 10-20 could be in the Final Four next year out of the blue. Then that team might not be very good next year. It's year to year. As they say, right now it's the wild, wild west in the NCAA. That's my answer.
That's
not to jump in and steal the show here at all, but what's that called, Mike? Outlaws versus
Outlaws.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember what we used to call that in the office.
Yeah, the wild, wild west. Teams are becoming outlaws. Yeah.
It is true. And, Duncan and I both, see it as well. Everybody that works here in the higher ed setting, it is the wild, wild west, not just of basketball, but of football, of enrollment, of, everything. Higher ed is in general in a great flux right now because of things like the transfer portal and skewing graduation rates and all types of other things that tie into that. So, Mike, back to you for the last question.
Yeah, I'm still trying to catch my breath because I don't know if anybody saw it. I almost choked on my drink with some of those answers. So, those were the best answers, I think, of the show so far. That was the funniest part and the funniest question with answers that nobody wants to see these teams come back. Oh, that's hysterical to me. So, I'm going to give my man Duncan a chance to answer first since he said everyone keeps taking his answers. So, Duncan, what is your prediction for these two games and also the national championship game?
Oof. UConn by double figures. San Diego State by double figures. Then UConn by double figures. Counting the free throws at the end.
Riveting commentary there.
Yep, I had to walk you through it. Really set the plot there.
Yeah. All right, Nick, let's go to you.
They say no 5 seeds ever won it. I had a 5 seed winning it. I just picked the wrong one. Obviously, I went with Duke this year. So I'm going to say a 5 seed versus a 5 seed. I'm going San Diego State versus Miami, even though I said UConn was the best team. And I'm going to say San Diego State with that defense. They win it.
Hey, you know what? I understand what you're saying, and this might shock you, me being a UNC fan. I had Duke winning it in my bracket, too. And
they were hot.
Completely screwed my entire
Good
bracket.
path. It happens.
Yeah. Paulo, let's go to you.
Well, if you guys talking about your favorite teams in your bracket, I am a Kentucky fan, but I'm also realistic. I had them losing first round this year. I was wrong, but not too far off. I don't know. I would have to say I think they're going to handle Miami first one. And then probably FAU. And then national championship, I'll say UConn just because I said Hurley at the beginning of the show.
All right. Brian, let's go to you.
Yeah, they all brought up great points, and I agree with a lot of it. In the UConn-Miami game, I think making shots in that arena where we were talking about earlier, might be a bit of a problem, but UConn's got the ability to get the ball inside a little bit, and they got great sets to get open layups, easy shots. And then just the pace that they play at, the defense creating their offense, I think that becomes a bit of a problem for Miami. So I got UConn winning that game. And then and the other one, San Diego State, FAU. I think that San Diego State's just physical, can guard. I told Coach Worrell that before the tournament started. I don't know if that counts for anything, but I did like them. And then, but FAU's just their experience, because like everybody else has been saying, the portal, they bring that on. And I mean, they're one of the older teams in the tournament, if I believe so. And they got one of the oldest players in the tournament. So I think that plays a part, but I just think San Diego State's well coached as well. And they play defense, they guard, they make it hard to score. And I think that's what comes up in the end of that game. So I think San Diego State, UConn, and then I just think that UConn and the pace that they're going to play at is going to be a little too much for San Diego State, and I think they pull it out. But like Drew said, I'm last in my bracket challenge, so don't take anything I say to be any sort of truth. I just what I feel. So thanks for putting me on the spot there, Drew.
Hey, you go with your heart, man. That's all you got.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. That's all it is. Fiddy, go ahead.
Well, Bono, I want to hear your answer as though Bono to this. Who are you picking for the national championship and the winner?
All right. I gotta agree. UConn makes it to the national championship game, and I'm going FAU to make it as well. And you know what? I don't see FAU losing. I don't. I like the underdogs. I love that story, even though they're really not an underdog, like Mike Worrell said. Like, it's just, the 35-3. Like, they're a team to watch out for. So I'm going FAU.
So I'm going to say it's going to be the Hurricanes are going to beat UConn, even though Hurley is tough, one of the toughest coaches out there. Probably would beat up 99% of the college basketball coaches out there, just because how tough he is and playing on them teams at Duke. But I'm going to pick Miami over UConn, and I'm going to pick FAU over San Diego State. We're going to have the battle of the state of Florida and the state of Texas. So, and I'm going to go with FAU winning the national tournament in the Florida Bowl being played in Houston. So, but same question, what is your prediction for these two games and also the national championship? Let's start with the GOAT, Mike Worrell. What do you predict?
Well, I've been accused all my life of straddling the fence, not taking a stance on a lot of things. So I'm going to go out on a limb and go with the two semifinal games could go either way, and the national championship game could go either way. But if I have to take one, I'll take UConn over San Diego State.
Okay, Mike Worrell with the best answer of the night, probably. Let's go to you, Brian. How about you?
You can always count on Mike, man, for anything that's going to make you laugh or to scratch your head. He's got the best. He's always been the best at it. So, I'm going to go out. I have San Diego State 65-56 in the first game. And then I have UConn 73-64 against Miami in the second game. And again, I think it all depends on who's officiating. If anybody, I don't think I can be fined anymore for talking about it. Well, I probably actually could be even worse now being a director of athletics. I'd be in a lot of trouble, I guess. But it just depends, I think, who's officiating the game for anybody that's paid attention to the tournament. I think could dictate a lot. If you get it, I think UConn's very, very aggressive. And I think obviously a really good defensive team, but if you got some officials that are tic-tacking it, man, it could cause some problems for UConn. But then I have UConn 74, San Diego State 67. The Huskies, unfortunately, get the W in the championship as the mascot takes a bite out of the Aztec Warriors' leg late in the fourth quarter to come up top.
Hey, who knows, Brian? Maybe it'll be the refereeing crew from the West Lib Nova game, and they'll just let them go all out for all 40 minutes. So,
I'm sick about that. I was actually going to say something about those officials.
I will say this, and we're going to move on. Nova's dudes should be Division I scholarship players. If that point guard was 2 inches taller, he'd be the reincarnation of probably Bobby Hurley at the Division I level. So I'm just throwing that out there. Me and Worrell talked about that. But if that dude was 5'11", he'd be the next Bobby Hurley.
My only connection to that game was Jordan Fee, who's the assistant coach at Nova is my high school coach's son. So I saw Jordan grow up in the gym. So that was kind of exciting to see him win a national championship.
Tony, let's go to you for this. What's your prediction for the semifinals and the championship?
Also, another side note on that Nova Southeastern team, a connection locally is RJ Sonahara. He went to Bay High School, which is up by Cleveland. He was one of the main cogs of that Nova Southeastern team. Hart says FAU Miami, battle of the Miami area schools, but realistically, I think Florida Atlantic takes it in a drag-out overtime game over San Diego State. And UConn just, they'll be pushed against Miami, but UConn will win in the end. They'll hit their free throws. And then UConn FAU will be a battle in the first half, and then UConn will gradually pull away due to their experience. But Florida Atlantic will definitely stay in the game, so I think UConn will win it all. I hope I'm wrong.
All right, Drew Barth, bring us home.
I think Florida Atlantic, I think they continue their run, and I think they take down that Aztec Warrior Coach Sansom keeps referring to over there. So I think they'll make it, and then I think UConn gets up about 15-18 on Miami. Miami makes a run, but they miss a 3 at the buzzer. So UConn wins by 2. That would be for the win. And then I had UConn beating Florida Atlantic in the championship. UConn is just powering through this tournament right now. And one of the harder brackets they were saying, but look what they just did to Gonzaga. Nobody saw that coming. I think they just continue into this weekend and end up winning by 15 in the championship.
So we have Drew Barth giving the most in-depth answer and Mike Worrell giving the most vague answer, and they're both in my questions for this one. So I don't know on that one, Mike. I'm gonna turn it back over to you though.
I don't know. Duncan with his just double digits. I don't know. You know what? All great answers. This was a lot of fun to kind of break down the Final Four. It's kind of a weird time because I'm used to talking about the Final Four like everyone else was saying on here. Your blue bloods are typically in it. Your Dukes, UNCs, your Kentuckys, all those. Never Purdue. I had to, Drew. I'm sorry. You haven't gotten enough crap on this show breaking up Purdue, so I had to take my shot.
Hey, I get it. UNC was watching the whole tournament from home, so I mean, I'm all right with that.
They were. I'll take that. I'll take that shot. I get it. I deserve it. But that is going to do it for this week's special Final Four preview show. I want to thank my entire panel of guests, and as always, my co-host and manager, Johnny Fiddy Falconi, for being on. That's going to do it for this episode. If I could talk, that would be fantastic. Be sure to check out all the sponsors that you heard at the beginning of the show. Reaper Apparel, Tactical Brotherhood, and my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. And please check out the new sponsor, Dubby Energy. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week.
The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.